So moving on into the presentation, I wanted to talk about fixing tables prior to merging them together. And in the fixing tables prior to merging them together, we have just one command here, is you can create expressions. And what I'm trying to show here is basically the edit data fields section, so it's going to be in the edit table definition. And in that edit table definition, you can then add a new expression, which is that little FX box. And probably looks familiar to you from Excel. I think it utilizes the same kind of terminology. So that's the function box. And by selecting that, you can create a new expression. And I wanted to walk you through a few expressions that I utilize a lot to basically trick ACL. And that could be if you're joining two tables together. And like I said, the supplier number is 5 in one table and 10 in another table. This would be a way to trick it and basically tell it, it's 10 in both tables. And again, using these expressions, I'm going to be able to show you that pretty quickly here. Okay, so going over to ACL. And we could take any file. I'm going to, I think, take the purchase file because it doesn't have too many fields and it's something that, should work fine. Okay, so the first thing is, notice when I probably did that a little too quickly. If you go to Edit, Table Layout, you can see the actual table layout for our our purchase order table. And it's starting with 1, has a length of 9, type is numeric, date, ASCII, etc. Now, let's imagine, just for a second, that you had another purchase file, and let's say it's purchase file 2. So let me just kind of create that. I'm just going to create a purchase file 2. And in this, so we have now purchase file 1 and 2. They're the same records. They're actually the same format. And if I try to merge them together, they'll merge perfectly together. So that's one thought. But let's imagine just for a second that the PO approver field, instead of it being 5 or 10, let's say it's 5. So for some crazy reason that one's 5. And let's just kind of keep it at that, just to keep it simple, that we have one field off. And let's then further imagine I then merge these two tables together. I don't even know if ACL, it might allow me to do this. It probably will. And when it asks, which field do you want to kind of merge the tables on when you're joining them together or merging them together, we'll just say PO number, we'll pre-sort it, etc., and we'll call it merged purchase order. And this, it'd be interesting to see how this works as we kind of go down the data table here. It does seem to work okay, in the actual fields. The only problem is it took only 5 characters from one as opposed to, the 10 and the 5 from the other. So notice here now everything is 5 characters no matter, how far you go down, and then we don't have the 10 characters down here. There are other, issues that you can run into, especially now let's say if I extracted this table and I called it merged, I think I called it merge purchase O. Okay, I'm going to overwrite my initial table, and then I'm going to go to the purchase file number 2, and in this case I'm going to extract it to, bear with me one second, to merge purchase O. And in this case, I can try to append to that existing file. And I guess, okay, because I'm extracting the record and the record layout of both was the same, everything would work fine. The problem is I didn't really, because that would actually turn out okay. Because I'm now extracting the fields, which is normally how you're doing it, you're ending up in a situation where all the data now is convoluted. because you had 5 characters here and then you had 10 characters here. So the data just starts to kind of go off at this point, and everything goes off from that point forward. So I'm trying to break what I'm doing here to show you what happens a lot when you have 2 different data sets. Now, what I normally do in order to check for this is there are a few different ways you can do this. I normally select the display function and I click on my push pin, and that push pin will hold down that particular display. Then I'll open up the second purchase file, hit the display function, and now hit push pin on that. So now I have purchase file 1, purchase file 2, and they're both available to me. So as I look at this first one, I look at my length and go 9, 6, 5, 10, 5, 7, and then I have 9, 6, oops, and 10 as opposed to 5. So there is a differential there, and that's where I kind of run into trouble. So where I'm running into trouble here is that these 2 field lengths are different, and how do I correct for that? There are a few different ways to do this. I'm going to show you the way that I normally take in doing this. But let's take this field here. This is the one that is smaller. So I'm kind of assuming that the bigger one is better, and then we'll kind of go with the smaller here. So I can go to table layout, and I can go to PO approver new. Now this is a very useful function, and I could take the PO approver. Just want to make sure here. Yep. And we're going to use the sub function. And normally the sub function is almost like not used in the way that I'm using it, where I'm strangely, the sub function, normally you're looking within a field. So it's like you would take PO approver and start with the second digit, and I want to carry over for 3 digits because I want to get just 3 characters worth of that field. But in this particular case, what we're doing is we're actually creating a new calculated field that is now larger than the original field, and it's set to 10. So it's kind of interesting, again, I'm kind of curious myself as I look at the results of what it's going to come back with. And bear with me one second. I may have opened up the wrong file when I did this, bear with me. So the PO approver here was 10, and then we created that PO approver. Let me just copy that, bear with me. Okay, so the one where it was smaller was the purchase file, so that's the one that I want to change. Again, here's the PO approver. I want to set it to 10. So we'll call it PO approver 10, just to be simple. And now this 5 character field is now 10 characters. Notice the length is 10. And even though that's PO approver, I'm kind of curious myself if it will actually, it will only take what's in that field, and then it'll add 5 blank spaces. But this can be very useful as a command where if you're joining, let's say, 2 address fields, and the address fields, you never know what they are. They could be 30 in length for one and 50 in length for another. You could just set up in your script, as you're utilizing your script down here, you could set up a statement where you're defining that field so that it's always 50. And you just pick some random number that you feel is large enough that it's going to handle everything that you need. But in some cases it might be 50, in some cases it might be 75, some cases it might be 2. But in all cases, if you utilize this command, it will create a field that is 50 long. So let's now, let me try this one more time, and basically I'm going to go PO amount, PO date. I'm going to take this PO approver 10, PO issuer, PO number, vendor number. So now I have 6 fields that I brought over, and I've kind of replaced the regular PO approver with that PO approver 10. And we're going to do this to a file called merge purchase. Oops. Oh. And I'm going to overwrite that table. Everything looks pretty good so far. Then I'm going to go to my purchase file 2 in this case. And a couple of ways I wanted to show you how to do this too. So now that I'm doing my next extract statement, I could go data extract. I could do that. But I'm going to go to my log. Hopefully I'll get this right. Click on the extract field statement. Instead of it being PO approver 10, just kind of delete that because I don't notice how in this file PO approver is how it's listed. So PO total amount, PO date, PO approver, issuer, etc., etc. And then at the end of this, I'm going to put the word append. So here's a way in your script mode to merge two different tables together just by extracting to the same table, merged purchase O, and now using the append function. Now that the fields are the same length, cross your fingers. Notice as I go down here, we'll now have the first set of it okay, and it's 5 characters. The next set of it 10 characters, and again, it got all the data that I can get in that field. So hopefully that's a good example for you to refer back to as well when merging files together. But I do find that the key to all of this, in my opinion, is utilizing that sub function and using the sub function to expand the field length more so than what you would normally expect in your file. So again, this is where it was 5. We use the sub function to expand that out to 10, even though it was only 5 characters to begin with.